An Australian is among those dead after at least 151 people were crushed when a huge Halloween party crowd surged into a narrow alley in a nightlife district in Seoul, South Korea. A Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade spokesperson confirmed the death, saying it was assisting the family of the crush victim and other Australians who were at the event. The Australian government sends its condolences to the family and others affected by this tragic incident. "We ask for the family's privacy to be respected during this difficult time," it said in a statement. Emergency workers and pedestrians desperately performed CPR on people lying in the streets after the crush in the capital's leisure district of Itaewon on Saturday night. Those killed or hurt were mostly teens and people in their 20s, according to Choi Seong-bom, chief of Seoul's Yongsan Fire Department. He said the dead included 19 foreigners whose nationalities weren't immediately released. Officials say the death toll could grow as 19 people among the 82 being treated for injuries are in critical condition. Concerned relatives in Seoul have rushed to hospitals in search of their loved ones. Read more. Can an election cure Victoria's health system? Australia's Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke earlier told Weekend Today the incident was chilling. "Our embassy officials are highly professional and they will be working through and making contact," he said on Weekend Today. "The death toll that we are looking at the moment, it seems fairly inevitable that is likely to rise." Australians concerned about the welfare of loved ones can call DFAT's Consular Emergency Centre on 1300 555 135. Those outside Australia can call +61 2 6261 3305. Choi, chief of Seoul's Yongsan Fire Department, said the death toll could rise and that an unspecified number among the injured were in a critical condition following the stampede in Itaewon on Saturday night. He said that the bodies were being sent to hospitals or a gym, where bereaved family members could identify them. He earlier said most of the dead and injured are in their 20s. Seoul's city government said more than 2,000 people have called a city office in nearby Hanam-dong as of midday Saturday, reporting their relatives as out of contact. CNN senior international correspondent Will Ripley told Weekend Today there were more than 1,700 response personnel from across the country deployed, including about 520 firefighters, 1,100 police officers and 70 government workers. "We have been here for several hours and the death toll has tripled," he said from Seoul. Ripley said many victims were in costume at the time, making identifying people difficult. "The fact that a lot of the victims were in costume adds another heartbreaking layer to all of this," he said. Read more. Drug driver allegedly caught twice in less than 4 hours in Victoria. It's making it difficult for these people to be investigated. "You have a lot of worried families of the young people. Most late teens, early 20s, according to witnesses, who were here." The National Fire Agency said in a statement that all of Seoul's available emergency workers have been mobilized. An estimated 100,000 people gathered in Itaewon, near a former headquarters of U.S. military forces in an area known for trendy bars, clubs and restaurants, for the country's biggest outdoor Halloween festivities since the pandemic began. The South Korean government eased COVID-19 restrictions in recent months. One survivor said many people fell and toppled to one another like dominoes after they were being pushed by other people at a narrow downhill alley near Itaewon's Hamilton Hotel. The survivor, surnamed Kim, said some people shouted "Help me!" and others were short of breath. Kim described being trampled by other people for about 1.5 hours before being rescued, according to the Seoul-based Hankyor newspaper. Another survivor, named Lee Chong-kyu, said he saw about 5 to 6 men start pushing others before 1 or 2 began falling one by one at the start of the stampede, according to the newspaper. The stampede is the biggest disaster since 304 people, mostly high school students, died in a ferry sinking in April 2014. Read more. First, as families arrive in Sydney from Syria detention camp, the sinking exposed lax safety rules and regulatory failures, as it was partially blamed on excessive and poorly fastened cargo and a crew poorly trained for emergency situations. Saturday's stampede will likely cause public criticism of government officials over what they've done to improve public safety standards since the ferry disaster. TV footage and photos showed ambulance vehicles lined up in streets amid a heavy police presence and emergency workers moving the injured in stretchers. Emergency workers and pedestrians were also seen performing CPR on people lying in the streets. In one section, paramedics were seen checking the status of a dozen or more people who lay motionless under blue blankets. In an interview with news channel YTN, Wang Min-hyuk, one of the visitors to Itaewon, said it was shocking to see rows of bodies laid down in the alley near Hamilton Hotel. Read more. What happened to Hu Jintao? Xi Jinping takes firmer control of China. He said emergency workers were initially overwhelmed, leaving pedestrians struggling to administer CPR to the injured lying on the streets. People cried beside bodies, he said. Another survivor in his 20s said he avoided being trampled as he luckily got into a bar whose door was open at the alley, Yonhap news agency reported. A woman in her 20s surnamed Park told Yonhap that she and others were standing along the side of the alley while others were caught in the middle. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol issued a statement calling for officials to ensure swift treatment for those injured and review the safety of the festivity sites. He also instructed the health ministry to swiftly deploy disaster medical assistance teams and secure beds in nearby hospitals to treat the injured. Read more. New 3D pedestrian crossing trial to begin in Sydney. The Seoul Metropolitan Government issued emergency text messages urging people in the area to swiftly return home. There were some deadly stampedes in South Korea in the past. In 2005, 11 people were killed and around 60 others were injured in a pop concert stampede in the southern city of Songju. In 1992, a teenage girl died and dozens of others were injured during a stampede at a Seoul concert by the U.S. pop group New Kids on the Block.